The Wrath of Achilles, a tale of blood and glory. The sun beat down relentlessly on the fields of Troy, its unforgiving rays illuminating a battlefield soaked in blood. The war, which had already raged for years, had come to its most critical juncture. The Greek forces, led by the mighty Achilles, stood poised at the edge of victory, but it was a victory marked by sacrifice, fury, and the price of pride. Among all the heroes who fought in the Trojan War, none were more feared than Achilles, son of the mortal Peleus and the sea goddess Thetis. His rage was as legendary as his strength, and it was his wrath that would shape the destiny of a city and the fate of heroes. The Greek camp at dawn, tents lined up like a sea of warriors, their armor gleaming in the early light. Horses snort and stamp their hooves, while the warriors prepare for another brutal day of battle. Achilles stands apart, his eyes like cold steel, watching as the men around him sharpen their weapons and tighten their armor. The Greeks were restless, eager to strike once more, but Achilles, their greatest warrior, remained distant. He had withdrawn from the fighting, his rage against Agamemnon, leader of the Greek forces, still burning like an unquenchable fire. It was only when his friend, Patroclus, donned his armor and went into battle in his place that the fates would take a dark turn. In the chaos of the battle, the Trojan soldiers, led by Hector, the noble prince of Troy, push forward with relentless force. The Greek lines buckle under the pressure. In the thick of the fighting, Patroclus, wearing Achilles' distinctive armor, charges into the fray, his sword swinging with deadly precision. Patroclus fought bravely, his courage matched only by his love for his friend. But the gods, as always, had their own plans. Hector, seeing the shining armor of Achilles, mistook Patroclus for the great warrior himself. The two clashed, and in the end, it was Hector's spear that found its mark. Patroclus fell, his life extinguished in an instant. Patroclus' lifeless body, blood pooling around him as the Trojans celebrate their victory. Achilles, miles away in his tent, receives the news. His grief and fury are palpable. He tears at his hair, his face contorted with rage. The death of Patroclus shattered Achilles. It was no longer a war over honor or glory, but a battle driven by the most primal of emotions, vengeance. Achilles swore an oath that he would avenge his friend's death, and the Trojans would pay the price. Achilles emerging from his tent, his armor shining like the sun itself. His rage fuels him, each step a thunderous march toward Troy. His men, the Myrmidons, follow behind, knowing the storm that is about to be unleashed. With the death of Patroclus, Achilles re-entered the war, his fury turning the battlefield into a slaughterhouse. His armor, crafted by the gods themselves, glowed with an otherworldly brilliance as he descended upon the Trojans like a vengeful god. Nothing could stand in his way now. Achilles tearing through the Trojan lines with unmatched skill. He swings his massive spear, cutting through soldiers like a reaper through wheat. His face is set in a grim expression, his every movement a testament to the power of rage. Each swing, each strike, sending a Trojan soldier crashing to the ground, their cries lost in the wind. The Trojans, terrified by the sight of the great Achilles on the warpath, could only flee or face death. His wrath was unstoppable, and in his eyes, they saw the reflection of a man who had lost everything. The final confrontation between Achilles and Hector is one of the most legendary moments in the Iliad. The mighty Hector, standing alone at the gates of Troy, his armor glinting in the light. He looks out over the battlefield, his eyes weary but resolute. Hector, the greatest of the Trojan warriors, knew his death was inevitable. But he stood tall, facing Achilles, knowing that only one would walk away from this fight. The gods themselves had chosen this moment for the final confrontation, a clash of two titans that would echo through history. Hector as he squares off with Achilles. Their eyes lock. There's no fear in Hector's gaze, only acceptance of his fate. The two charge at each other, their weapons raised. The ground shakes with the force of their blows as they exchange strikes, each one testing the other's resolve. The battle was fierce, but it was clear who would emerge victorious. Achilles, in his rage-fueled fury, drove his spear through Hector's chest. The Trojan prince fell to the ground with a final, anguished cry, his life extinguished in the blink of an eye. As Hector collapses, a man who fought not for glory, but for his people. Achilles stands over him, his chest heaving, but there is no satisfaction in his victory. His vengeance is complete, but at what cost? Even in victory, Achilles found no peace. The death of Hector had not quenched the fire in his heart. He dragged the noble Trojan prince's body around the walls of Troy, a final act of humiliation. But the gods watched from above, and they had already begun to turn their gaze upon him. In the end, Achilles' fate was sealed. He had avenged his friend, killed the greatest of the Trojans, but in his wrath, he had defied the gods. His death, though foretold, would come soon enough, and end as tragic as it was inevitable. The tale of Achilles is one of glory, rage, and loss. A hero who fought not for his own honor, but for the fallen. A warrior who sought vengeance but paid the ultimate price. His story, like the great walls of Troy, stands as a reminder of the costs of war and the price of pride. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.